Oh, 100%. A few years ago, we decided that I would go into my practice full time and my husband would leave teaching and be 100% with Ben, my son. And it was the best decision we ever made because I've been running the ship, all these years. And so now it was his turn. So the transition was fun. He's always been a real involved dad. We will be married 30 years this May.
Oh,
So
good for you.
thank you. It's been a lot, but it's wonderful, and we love each other now more than ever. But he would take my son to this barbecue restaurant near us every like Saturday morning or Sunday morning, whenever it was. As soon as they opened, like 11 o'clock, they were the first ones in. And they sat at the same table every time with the same waitress every time. So that what we did was we could do that exposure, I love that word for it, to be as successful as possible.
Absolutely, because that gives the children confidence.
100%. And it was great. It was beautiful.
And the repetition, I have to say, I'm like, I want to bring these pearls in. Like
Yes.
for us, the same 3 or 4 restaurants, the same 3 or 4 stores. You go during off hours, you create your visual scripts, whether it's written words or visuals. All of that minimizes their need to think and process how you ask them a question, how you
Yeah.
bring them into the social communication encounter. All of these things, creates a sense of safety for these kids.
Oh, I love that. Yes, a sense of safety. And that safety comes not only from the environment, but from your interaction with them. So I always make sure I say to my son now that I know him really well, that I'll say, okay, I always give him two choices. We're going to go out to eat. Do you want to go here or here? Do you want to eat this or this? Not a whole list of things, but if I can whittle it down for him and then present it. And yeah, so that's it. It's great that we do these things as moms, but then think about the extra energy that takes.
I mean, just with what we just said, like it's exhausting to think about all that you need to do to set these exposures up. And there are families that will call the center and be like, I really don't have time for this. We had someone recently call the center and said, we need our son cured. This is exact words. We need our son cured. I don't have time. I work full time. I'm a single father. I cannot do any of this. And we said back, this may not be the right fit for you because this is going to take parent involvement and facilitation. And, we can't cure your son on the spot because that's what he wanted. Like it doesn't work that way. This is a
Right.
living, breathing human being that has needs, and
Yes.
we need to, as parents, be there to facilitate, to create the exposures, to know how to help them and support them and practice this because they're not going to be able to do it on their own.
100%. Yeah. And I was that parent in the beginning. I was like, just tell me what I got to do. I'll check it off the list. We'll do it and then we'll move on. We'll be okay. And
Yeah,
then, he'll go to college someday or whatever. I just wasn't it was my own way of denying what was going on. It was my
I
own
think that's
grief.
what it is.
Yeah. So that grief cycle is important because anytime you find out something's wrong with your child, it's there's grief.
You just gave me a whole nother podcast topic to talk about, just to give as I think about that. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but that, like, learning about the diagnosis and being able to manage your own, like, grief over it and
Mhm.
acceptance over it. And every now and then, when we have families that come to us for like selective mutism, and then you see them and you realize, whoa, they have like some additional challenges, like learning issues that everyone was blaming it on SM, or you see autism and you're like, we recommend this testing, and no, I don't want it. And then sometimes they'll have it, you give them the diagnosis and they will not accept it because they're in denial. And as a result, their children are going to suffer.
Yes.
School-based accommodations, interventions need to be adjusted, and their parenting needs to be adjusted. Everything needs to be adjusted.
Yes. I mean, this these diagnoses are like a bomb going off, and the shrapnel goes everywhere. And I like to say any issues that you have are at the surface. It's like they're kind of floating on top of the water after everything blows up. They're there, and you have to deal with them.
And in many cases, like autism diagnosis, and especially like the severity of the child with autism, in many cases with SM, it isn't, it is I don't want to say an easy fix because nothing's an easy fix, but it's not as severe as some children. So you have the gamut of severity, just like you do with autism with SM. Some
Sure, sure.
kids, it's, different. So I don't want our listeners to feel that, oh my gosh, the bombs went off. Like some of them, it isn't going to be a bomb. It's going to be like uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and it's going to be changing your ways, because the more you're involved, the more you facilitate, the more the children make the progress and so forth. But we were talking about the energy just helping our children. But what about the self
Mm.
advocacy you need to do for your child in school and in settings? That's energy
Mm.
draining too.
Very draining. I tell parents all the time, especially if they're parents that see me weekly or every couple of weeks just for their own mental health. If I know they have an IEP meeting coming up
Yep.
or a reevaluation or anything like that, I usually say just be aware that when you see all of this on paper, it makes it so real. No matter how long you've been doing it, no matter how well adjusted you feel, you still might be struck by, oh my gosh, these are my kids' issues on paper.
Yeah. So self advocacy with the school, fighting for rights, fighting for accommodations, interventions. But what about with certain, I'm sure you must have had some of this, but aunts, uncles, family, friends that really don't understand your child, and the frustration and anxiety, the frustration, the depression, like you get really upset because they
Yes.
don't get your child. So you have
Oh,
to advocate for them and educate them.
yes, and it feels like you have to, yeah, you have to be like the mom, the therapist, the educator, the meal maker, the every like you have to be everything.
You're wearing tons of hats. I love how you're
Tons.
describing that. I'm getting an image because I'm very visual of just you're changing the hat. You're changing your outfit every time you're out and about, everywhere
Yeah.
to self-advocate for your child. And then the guilt you feel sometimes, or embarrassment, like when your child doesn't say hello or thank you.
Yeah.
We do the big 5 words: hi, bye, yes, no, and thanks. And one of the biggest challenges our kids have are greetings, and being able to say thank you. And probably one of the reasons is because of all the years of or time saying, say thank you, say please, say hello, say goodbye. It becomes an avoidance for this population. And so the big 5 words tend to be the most difficult words to say or even not say. Just do.
Well, because think about all of the social rules that are around those things too, right?
Yes.
So we're not just talking about the speech part of the brain, we're talking about the
Right.
social part. And to be able to get those working the way that they need to say those 5 words, a lot has to happen.
A lot has to happen. A lot
Yeah.
has to happen. So why self-care matters? Like, let's talk about this, about, like, in your words, how do you describe this? I know this was one of the topics you had in your Autism Blueprint podcast. You did a lot with this, and you do a lot of work with parents. So definitely putting that out there for our listeners, because I think it's going to be a valuable resource. Talk to talk to our listeners, like talk to me about, why does it matter? Like, okay, self-care, but why? Why?
Right,
We
right.
talked about
And
it, but why?
so when I refer to self-care, I'm not talking about massages and weekends
Yes.
away and things. Now, it can be, but I'm talking about the kind of self-care that we do moment to moment throughout a day. So for me, this includes setting healthy boundaries, deciding what and who in your life is toxic or not, right?
Oh,
I don't know, I'm not going to curse on here, but I had a
you can curse.
okay. So I had a therapist say to me one time when I was hemming and hawing about an event I had to go to. My kids were little and I didn't want to go and she said, "Well, she told me two things. One, I don't want to is a good enough reason." And I had never been told that in my life. So I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't want to is a good enough reason. I'm going to take that to the bank." And two, she said, "Janeen, you have enough bullshit to deal with on a daily basis to have to deal with more." So those two ideas gave me permission, to start saying no when I had to say no. I was a horrific people pleaser. I still to
I
this
was just
day.
going to say, we're like literally vibing, because so many things you're saying are like
Yeah.
right here for me. And then you're like, and people pleasing. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Oh
Well,
my
we're in
gosh.
the helping profession, right, Doc? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
this is why we just get to help, right, or overhelp, and get paid for it. So,
It's interesting you said about the people pleasing and like feeling like you're making someone disappointed. I don't know if you know of this. I'm sure you've heard of Mel Robbins.
yeah, I love Mel.
So Mel, yeah, me too. She's incredible. But she came up with this theory called the let them theory. And I'm not sure I just learned about it like maybe 2 months ago, and I bought the book and I'm listening to it. And it has been so helpful because it's for me to teach my families I work with, let them have a meltdown that you didn't go to the party, but let
Yes.
me take care of myself and do what I need to do. Because we all have that difficulty with disappointing and not wanting to disappoint, right? And it starts
Yes.
to eat at us, and that's energy draining.
Mhm.
Self-care, energy draining.
Mhm.
So I love the way you said about the boundaries. But for our listeners, I want to refer them to that Mel Robbins "Let Them" theory, because it is so easy
Yeah.
to listen to and understand, but we don't do it. We're
Yeah.
so busy pleasing everyone, and our families get so caught up in that. Like, I don't want to disappoint the neighbor, but I don't think that family barbecue with 150 people screaming is the best place for my child on a
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon after doing therapy all day. Like, we need to decompress, or
Yes.
whatever it is. Or going to a specific birthday party, of the big roller rink when there's a million people there. That may not be the best place to take the child. Maybe you do that. You know what I mean? There's so
I
many
do.
different things you have to make decisions, but you're so worried about disappointments, of disappointing
Yes.
others.
Oh, and I especially get this during the holidays, and I know it's not that time right now, but anything that comes up, birthday parties, holidays, anything like that, I say to families, what works for you? You have to figure out what works for you, what works for your family, and don't make any apologies for that. You get to say to your in-laws or whoever, you know what? Thanksgiving at your house isn't going to work for us this year. We're going to spend it at home and we'll see you next time, or we'll see you for dessert, or whatever it is that will work for your family. You don't owe anyone an explanation as to why you're making the choice you're making.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, the oxygen mask analogy, I love that one too, right? Like, if you're not taking care of yourself and your needs and your family's needs,
Yeah.
then you can't do anything for anyone.
100%. And it's when I was training to be a therapist, I was taught you can only take your clients as far as you've gone.
Interesting.
And I think that a lot of that is true about our parenting as well. If we want our children to have healthy relationships, but we don't know how to have healthy relationships, there's a problem.
No, that's great recommendations. And you were saying at the beginning about letting the toxic people go, which is energy draining, in
Mm-hmm.
order to help your child, right? In order to help yourself, you got to let some of them go.